I wanted to do this video. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I wanted to just talk and do it. So, a lot of men out there, they struggle in silence. And society doesn't really reward us or want to hear us a whole lot of times. If you're lucky, you'll get a significant other that will allow you to vent to her, but a lot of times it can also be misconstrued by her sometimes. Over time, she will think you're weak. But there's a lot of guys out there who just struggle in silence, man. It could have been from where they came from, whatever's going on in their life, or their kids, or their family. There's a lot of different reasons why guys struggle. And I've had my share of struggles, and I thought that I would share them with you today, and maybe you and I can relate. So when I was a kid, about eight years old, me and my family, we lived together, and we were a tight family. It was my mom, and it was 5 of us. I had 3 brothers, a sister, and then it was me. It was 5 of us, 5 kids. And my mom was a single mom. She worked at the Huddle House or the Waffle House. She was a waitress. And we lived very poor, man. We lived on welfare, and we struggled. We spent a lot of winter nights around a stove, where my mom would lay the stove door down and put a fan there, and then she'd put blankets up and we would all stay in that one room, that little kitchen, and we would get dressed. We spent many winters like that, and I become used to it. That was a way of life. That's just the way we lived. And I would sleep in the back bedroom with my brothers or whoever, and sometimes different people lived in our house if they needed somewhere to stay. We were just poor, and that's just how it was. And a lot of people in the neighborhood, they leaned on one another. So when we would wake up in the morning time, I'd go into the kitchen, and my mom would have it warm in there. She'd have her coffee, and that was how she kept us warm, you know. But we loved each other. My mom was a good mom. She did the best she could. She was a single mom, right? Rest in peace. And over time, my mom got sick, you know, carrying the burden of trying to take care of a bunch of kids, and there's no man there to help you. You know, you can only be strong for so long, right? And so my mom got real sick. She had some mental breakdowns and stuff like that. And we kind of split up. And so my 2 older brothers, they went and stayed with their uncle in Atlanta, Georgia. And my sister went and stayed with her aunt in Georgetown, South Carolina. My little brother, Austin, he went and stayed with his dad. He was the only one who had a different dad than all of us. All the others, we had the same dad. And it was me. I was left. I went and stayed in a boys' home, Terra Hall Home for Boys. And I was already 2 grades behind. I was 10 years old. I was in the 3rd grade. And the reason why I was behind is because back in them days, if you missed 10 days of school, you got held back automatically. And so I done failed 2 times. So I was already behind in school. Just a lot of other stuff. But anyways, I went to this boys' home behind 2 years. And I stayed in that boys' home for 2 years. And it wasn't nothing but boys. And we were away from the world. And at 8 years old, when you're away from the world like that, when you're living out in the woods by yourself, you know, you can't help but to feel like you were abandoned, or like, you know, I stayed out there for 2 years. And then when I left there, I bounced around from foster homes. I never went back to my parents' house. We never got back together. And so I would receive letters and stuff periodically, you know, but when you're a little boy, you don't have no choice but to, I mean, you sit there and you pray, because my mom was a very biblical woman, and she used to always push the Lord on us, and she believed in that. And there was one thing that she used to always tell us when we were kids, that there was no forgiveness for suicide. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but she would tell us that because she said that it was a sin. And she said that if you sin before you pass away, then you actually have to go face God with sin on your hand. So I don't know if it was a mind game or what it was, but I will tell you it worked. Because there has been many times in my life where I was ready to go, man. And, you know, I'm not suicidal, by the way, but I will tell you, the point of this video is to tell you that throughout my entire life, I would say that it is a correct statement that I basically ran towards death my entire life, man. And I'm going to give you some different examples of that. But my whole life, I have ran towards death. and damn near wanted it, just wanted to get it over with. And I'll give you some examples here in a little bit. But so when I was a kid, when you can't help but to feel abandoned out there. And so when you're out there and you miss Christmases and Thanksgivings and birthdays and all the other kids' parents write them and come see them and stuff, what happens is you end up building up a lot of resentment towards your family and towards other people. And you just can't help it. It's just the way you are. It's like a dog, right? If you take a dog and put a dog on a cage or on a chain, and you put them in the corner of the yard, and you don't never go pet them or go see them or love on them, they learn how to become emotionless. They don't have emotions. And then when other dogs do come around them, they hate them and they want to fight them because they're irritated because they never got the love that they wanted. So when I was growing up, I kind of lost that. I always wanted it. I always wanted a wife. I always wanted a family. I always wanted all that stuff. And I got that. I eventually worked towards that, and I wrote that down as a goal, and I achieved that. And so, and I'll get to that later, but I did do all that. But that's kind of the story of when I was a kid. And then as I grew up, like when I was in high school, there was this one lady. I bounced around. I probably went to eight or 10 different foster homes from the time I was 8 to the time I was in 8th grade. And finally, when I was in the 8th grade, I was out there playing B team football. And this is where I can start talking to you about me running towards death. In the 8th grade, I was trying out for the B team football, and there was a lady out there. She was a trainer. You gotta remember, I wasn't but like 5'3", 5'4". I was a little guy, and I was hitting some of the biggest dudes out there. They line us up, and when I hit these guys, I was playing with a different attitude. I took everything that had ever happened to me in my life, and the poor son of a bitch that was in front of me, he was about to pay for it. And so that lady, she could see that I played with a ton of heart for my size. Like, it was heart, what it was just heart and fire. And there was a lot of emotions. I just really wanted the guy in front of me to feel the pain that I had felt my entire life. And I got a high out of that through sports. I really did. I enjoyed bringing pain to the guy in front of me because it was that was a mental thing that I did to get locked in to hurt people. And I wanted them just to feel. I did it in the weight room. I go into the weight room and it was like in my mind, I would put everything that had happened to me in my life, and I wanted to show somebody that they shouldn't have left me out. There was like a caged animal, like that dog does on that chain, is what I'm trying to explain. Well, this lady, she seen that I was on that chain. Well, I'm sorry, let me back up. She seen that whenever I went to practice or to the game, she noticed that nobody ever showed up. It was just me. And so one day, she asked me, she took me to get my physical or something, and she asked me, she said, "Chance, let me ask you a question." There was like 3 or 4 of us in the car, and she said, "Chance, let me ask you a question. Where's your parents at? Like, are they around or what?" She was kind of feeling me out, and back then I didn't realize she was fishing. But I told her, I said, "Well, I don't have no parents." I said, I'm on my own. I said, "I'm a foster child. I live over here in a shelter home on Highway 90. And when I told her that, she like turned around and looked at me in the back seat and was like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." Well, I didn't know it till later on, whenever I was about to get in high school. She had always been curious about getting her foster care license. And I guess whenever I was out there playing football, I imagine she fell in love with me. Like, she liked my story. She seen that I was a foster child and I had a lot of heart. I had the heart and desire to become successful at a very young age. The problem was I didn't have the resources. I mean, I didn't have the platform. I didn't have a home. I have a family. So she went out to the shelter home and she got her license and everything, her foster care license. And she come out there and got me one day and she said, "I'm going to give you an opportunity of a lifetime." She said, "If you go to school and do what you're supposed to," I think I was in like 9th grade. She said, "If you go to school and do what you're supposed to," she said, "you'll be able to stay in my home throughout high school, and then we'll go from there." So this is a picture of her family and my sister and my little brother. Look at my little brother, how he's hugged up on that woman. And now I want you to look at me in the lower left. Look at how disconnected I was to this family. I mean, that's how abandoned I was, and I guess I still had resentment. And when I look at this photo, I see all these people who are happy, and I'm just kind of in my own little world. And I still have trouble with that sometimes as a grown man. But that was a loving family. And I don't know, I look back on that, and it's been a 43-year battle, and I think we all go through it sometime, men who suffer in silence. She said, but what I need you to do is just go to school, be a good kid, and do what you're supposed to. And to me, that was my mission. I was like, I can do that. Now, I won't get into the details, but there was a couple things I got into in high school, because I've always been the type of guy that if I feel challenged or threatened, I will fight your ass in a heartbeat. Like, I mean, but you gotta understand, I grew up in the gutter, man. I grew up in that boys' home fighting people. That's what I knew, you know, and respect's always been huge to me. I want my respect, and I'll go get it too. And so, there was a couple times in high school where I was challenged, and I had to handle my business. And she actually, on all the, damn near every event I ever got into, she could understand where I was coming from. And she kind of was like, well, I probably wouldn't have put up with that either. So, you know, it was just people challenging, you know. So all through high school, you know, she was the only one that was in the stands watching me play football. And I'm going to show you a picture right here. I just found this picture the other day. I posted on one of my carousels because I found it. But that's me running down the hill in high school football. You know, and in my lifetime, I have always ran towards the enemy, the objective. I've always ran towards whatever it was, and kind of was hoping for the worst. Either they was going to kill me or hurt me, or I was going to hurt them, but I wanted them to feel my pain. Even on Friday nights when I would go out and hit people, I hit people with bad intentions. And I mean, I really wanted them to feel everything. And so that was me running towards death. I was running towards whatever, you know. And I built up a pretty good name for myself in my hometown. People knew who I was, and they knew I liked to pack a punch, and I had a pretty good reputation. And so fast forward, you know, I got through high school and I got into the military. Well, when I went into the military, you know, when I was coming in high school, it was either prison, the streets, or, well, actually it was either the streets, prison, or the military. And so I joined the military just to see what happened. I said, I'm gonna give it 3 years. And so I joined the military, and I wanted to be kind of close to home, not too far, but so I told him I want to go to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which was like 2 hours away. And the guy said, well, you'll have to jump out of aircraft, which means you have to be a paratrooper. And I said, okay. There was no fear. And now that I'm older, I look back and I wonder, like, what was wrong with me? I was never scared. It never really bothered me. I didn't care. I didn't care about living or dying. You know what I mean? But I would never commit suicide because, and although many times I wanted to, I would never do it because of that seed that my mom planted about going to hell, you know, like, and I just always thought, like, well, I don't know, that might be true, so I just never did. I just kind of got through it. That one little seed that my mom planted saved my whole life, you know. And so what I would do is I just said, well, I'm gonna kill them, then I'm gonna make them kill me. And I did that my whole life. In football, when I got in the military, he told me I had to jump out of aircraft. I had no problem doing that. I went down there, and I probably jumped out of 68 aircraft, something like that. It's the 60s. And I'm telling you right now, every aircraft that I ever jumped out of, I didn't care if I lived or died. It didn't bother me one bit. Sometimes I'd be in the aircraft and I would actually say to myself, you know, maybe today's the day. I know that sounds messed up, but I actually thought that, you know. And that's kind of what abandonment will do to you when you're a kid. But what happened is, strangely, throughout my life, I kept winning. I kept doing good things in my career because I had the same mentality that I had on the football field about hitting people and attacking goals and attacking success, and I would put different things in front of me and I would go and get them. And you fast forward that over a 15-20 year career in the military, and you've done a lot of good stuff. I'm not gonna get into all the accolades I've done, but then you start learning, like, okay, that was the day when I started learning how to live. Was one day I was in the aircraft, and I was literally in the aircraft, and I started thinking my daughter Maylee, and I'll show you a picture of her right here. But that was my daughter, and my daughter used to always come take care of my toenails and my hair and my fingernails, and I learned to really love her. I love my other 2 kids too, but it's different with a little girl, you know. And one day I was in the aircraft, and my children used to sit on the drop zone and wait on me to jump out the aircraft, and then they'd meet me on the drop zone. And I remember one day I was in the aircraft, and I just thought about it, and I said, you know, Chance, you know, you got a house, you know, I started thinking about all the things I had in my life. And the thing that meant the most to me at that time was my wife and my 3 kids. I mean, I had a family. I had something that I had wanted ever since I was a child. And I thought to myself, I said, what the hell are you doing jumping out of aircraft? Why are you doing this? And so suddenly I didn't have the urge to run towards death anymore. You know, I mean, at least not at that moment. You know, and prior to that, I had went on a deployment to Afghanistan. I actually raised my hand on 3 different occasions, and I got to actually a couple different occasions, and I got to go 3 times overseas. So I raised my hand probably 5 times. I went 3 times. The first 2 times I couldn't go for different reasons, but I went the other 3 times. And I'm telling you, it seemed like every 3 times, whenever I look back on my life, I mean, I was running towards the enemy. I was running towards death. I actually wanted it. I didn't care. And I know that sounds terrible, but I'm older now, and I don't mind talking about it. It's almost like therapy for me, right? I don't even think I could talk to a therapist about this, but I think there's other guys out there who probably feel the same way I do, and I think a lot of times they probably take it out on alcohol or booze or drugs or whatever. And I was running towards death. I didn't care, and one day I was in the aircraft. This was after all the deployments, and I was in the aircraft, and I just thought to myself, I said, what the hell are you doing? All I could think about was my daughter. And I made a promise to myself on that aircraft. I said, if I get off this aircraft and I land and there's no issues, I'm going to get out of the airborne community. I'm going to start taking less risk. I'm not going to do as many high risk things. Like, I'm not going to ride motorcycles. I'm not going to jump out of aircraft. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to volunteer for deployments. I'll go if I have to, but I'm not raising my hands. I'm not raising saying, hey, I'll go. So even when I was in Afghanistan, I used to go out to wire. I mean, I was looking for that fucker. I wanted to go. I mean, I didn't care. I really didn't care. I actually, back then, I thought it was admirable to go die for your country. Like, I thought that was the best way to go out in my mind. And my brothers used to say, bro, you can get killed over there. And I would always say, well, you can get killed in the Scotsman. Those guys who walk in the Scotsman all the time get shot, and they just bystanders. That was the way I thought about it. And then I thought, at least in a combat zone, I've got an M16 or an M4 rifle on my hips, and a flak vest. I can defend myself, and a ballistic helmet. That was how I thought. And so I would just say, you know, fast forward, my life's gotten really better here lately. The past couple of years have been rough because my wife and I have been we're still married, but she's in South Carolina and I'm down here, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Our kids are in high school, and we want to stabilize them, and she and I both have always kind of put our kids ahead of our marriage, and our marriage has struggled with that, and I'll be honest about that, you know. And but we are still happily married, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm fixing to retire in November. We're building my dream home. If you go check my channel out, I've got videos of the house and stuff like that. So I mean, actually in my life right now, I'm happy. You know, I am happy, and I don't run towards death anymore. Like, now I slow down a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. I take less calculated risk. Like, I even told my wife, I said, I don't want to fly no more on an airplane. I don't want to get on one no more. There's no reason going to them aircraft. If we're going to go to Nashville, Tennessee, or go somewhere, let's just hop in the car and drive. It's just me trying to be a little bit older and wiser, smarter guy, you know. And I would just tell you that I'm not the only one out there who feels that way. There's a lot of men out there who are my age, and they suffer in silence, man. And I would just tell you, this channel that I'm trying to build when I get out the military, I want it to be a community where guys can come in here and talk. And I joined this fitness group a couple months ago in January. I was 182 pounds, and I was overweight. And I didn't like who I was becoming. I was drinking a lot, and I won't get into all the details. I'll make another video on that. But the long story short is, I lost a lot of weight in 4 months, and I got a lot of good friends in that chat group that keep me up, and they support me, and I talk to them all the time. And I told my wife, I said, these are some of the best friends I've ever had, you know. And so they text me, and I'm really happy with the relationships I built, and it makes me want to keep winning. But it makes me not want to run towards death no more. And I want to have a long life now, and there's 4 things that I really want to focus on, which is my faith, my family, my finances, and my fitness. I feel like those 4 pillars right there, as a man, if you can kind of have a good baseline in all of those, you know, the rest of your life can be pretty good, because those are probably the 4 things that a man needs the most, man. He needs his family. He's got to feel like he's got a purpose, like he's fighting for somebody. If he ain't got that, he ain't got nothing. He's got to have whatever type of faith that he believes in. It ain't got to be biblical. It can be, what is your purpose? You know, like, what faith do you, like, what are you here for? Why were you put on this earth, you know? You got to have money to do things. If you can't take care of your family and survive, that ain't going to work, you know? And in your fitness, you've got to be in some sort of shape, because you got to play the long game. And so those are the 4 things that I've been really dialed in on here lately, trying to figure out. And what I'd love to do is get baptized later on this year. That's something I'm working towards too. I struggle with the biblical part because I have really bad, and this is another video too, but I have really bad PTSD from when I used to pray to God when I was in a boys' home. You know, I'd pray to him and he never talked to me, and I always wondered, why me? Why me? And I'll be honest with you, I resented him in some ways for leaving me and abandoning me. And so maybe I got abandonment issues. I don't know. I just, what I did is I used all that as fuel to get to where I'm at now. And I will say I'm happy to be where I'm at now. You know, Mike Tyson, when he talks a lot, when I hear that guy talk, he would take all that hate and he would just take it out on the person in front of him. And I felt that many years of my life. I would take it out on goals, though. I would chase success because I wanted to prove to people that I was going to become successful. And I'm in a better place now. This channel helps me out. The social media helps me out. And I'm trying to find a new tribe of guys that I can help. That's kind of what I want to focus on in the next part of my life. Because I actually get off on helping other guys. I'm passionate about that. I enjoy it. I enjoy stoking them up. And when I see those guys win, I win in a way. I feel like I'm, you know, Rocky Balboa whenever he was coaching Tommy in that movie Rocky 4, man. Or 5, whichever one it was. I think it was 5. But anyways, I just wanted to do this video because I've been thinking lately about, you know, I've been looking back on my life and just thinking like, boy, you used to be in a bad place, man. And maybe God does exist. Maybe I have a higher purpose, you know. Maybe he did all that for something else so I can help somebody else. I mean, and if he did do that, then I'm okay with it. I'm game for that. I'm ready to take on the challenge. So I just thought you might enjoy this video. If you have a story or whatever, you can email me. I'll put the information in the description down there. I got an email, and I've even got my phone number down there. You can always text me through WhatsApp or on the phone. We'll spark up a conversation. But just remember, guys, don't suffer in silence, man. Reach out. Find your tribe, you know, and we'll go from there. What I'd like to do is next year I want to get into some sort of online coaching where I'm coaching young males who's going through these things. But we'll see how that shakes out. All right, we'll see you guys on the next one.